following program is sponsored by CBN.
Coming up, a cheating husband leaves his cell phone behind.
I saved everything, pictures, everything was there.
And his wife finds it.
When she opened up the phone, I heard a scream.
His double life has been exposed.
What do I do? I'm busted.
Now see what repairs this broken marriage.
I needed to put the pieces together.
Today on the 700 Club.
Indiscretions, explicit pictures, incriminating texts. This husband left everything on his phone. See what happened when his wife discovered it all.
Well, up next, his wife emotionally passed out after she unlocked her husband's cell phone. See why she was in utter shock, what she did next, and how it became what this couple calls the epic event.
Graphic photos, intimate texts. Jason Gray kept everything you could imagine on his cell phone. Then one day, he left his phone behind before leaving on a trip. His wife unlocked it and triggered a bomb that the couple now call the epic event.
I was helpless and just listening to Tinasha just in agony, go through the phone and really asking questions. And at that moment, I was in fear of our marriage at that point because it's like, now, what do I do? I'm busted.
Tinasha Gray thought her marriage with Jason was strong until one day in 2014 when he accidentally left his phone in her car before boarding a plane to Trinidad. He later borrowed a phone to call her.
She asked me for the password, which I was very reluctant to give her the password. And then when she opened up the phone, I heard a scream. That's when everything came crashing.
On the phone were text messages and graphic photos of Jason with other women.
My initial reaction was utter shock. I felt like emotionally I passed out. I just knew my world was crumbling.
All of my indiscretions, everything. I saved everything on my telephone. Pictures, everything was there. Text messages, I didn't delete anything. Just what you could imagine was on that phone was on that telephone.
Jason had grown up in the church and lived an outwardly Christian life, which was attractive to Tinasha when they first began dating.
I lived in New York and he lived in Florida at the time, but I did not have a thought that he would not be faithful. He went to church, he paid his tithes, he seemed like a great contributing member to society.
I felt a connection. I really felt like she was the one. She was very ambitious, and so that was one of the things that really attracted me to her, not only just her looks, but her intellect.
The couple had 3 sons and were happy for many years. But after what they now refer to as the epic event, their marriage was in crisis.
During the 10 years we got married, I didn't have any sexual relationships with any women, but I had a lot of emotional relationships, and I had a lot of inappropriate conversations leading up to the epic event. Now, the epic event happened after I met my affair partner back in 2014. And that, of course, the epic event exposed everything else that was going on in my life at the time.
On the day when I dropped Jason off at the airport, I had a good feeling, even before I got home, that this phone has the answers. There are some things that's locked up in here that I need to get into it.
Jason had 3 days to think before he returned from Trinidad.
When I arrived home, the first thing I did was drop to my knees and ask for her forgiveness. I was filled with all sorts of emotion, and what really hurt me was to see how she was responding to all of this, because here I am, the love of her life, a person that she put on a pedestal, and I betrayed her trust. I mean, I not only betrayed it, but I ran through the wall of trust with a semi-truck.
I just truly said to him, I can't help you. I know someone who can. His name is Jesus. Here's a journal, here's a book, here's a pen. Please, there's a room upstairs. Go meet with God.
Jason spent the next week in their spare room fasting and praying.
I had no distractions. I did a lot of reading, And I felt the presence of the Lord in that room. So I really had a really strong encounter because I completely surrendered.
The healing process was challenging and took time.
I felt like I needed a good understanding of what happened because I needed to put the pieces together. And how did it all occur? Like why, when, how, with who, when, just every question in the book.
She was angry. She hated me at times. And it was tough. And there was times where I wanted to walk away from the marriage. And I felt like there was times that she tried to push me away to see what I was made of.
God was working on Tinasha's heart also.
I knew she was praying for me regardless of if the marriage was going to survive or not, just for my own well-being, because that's what she does.
I knew that I had to forgive Jason. I did it out of obedience to God. And once I did it, I felt freed. And we continued the journey of going to counseling. I said to him, I forgive you. And you have a clean slate. Do whatever you want to do with it.
Jason humbly received the grace given to him and is totally committed to Tinasha. The couple later wrote a book about their experiences.
It was a long journey to reconciliation. It really took us going to many different classes. Jason did a Conquer series with men that dealt with addiction. Then together we did a marriage for life group with other couples. We did a lot of work, plus we were committed to just talking.
Today, their marriage is stronger than ever. They also host a weekly marriage podcast together to help other couples address the roots of their problems before it's too late.
Don't give up. God can restore anything if you're willing to work at it. And Tinasha always says that it takes two, but it starts off with one person. And that's always been our testimony.
Spending time together, quality time, making that time to connect is what I would advise couples to stand firm and be unmovable about those date nights. Keep going. Don't stop connecting, and be true to the process of healing, growing. That's what we believe for other couples, and we've seen it in our own lives.
It is a journey, and marriage takes three, really. The closer you get to God, the closer you stay to each other. You know, one of the things that made this possible, this healing, was that Jason came home humbly. The other thing was that Tinasha decided that she would forgive. And you know, forgiveness can feel like such a wrong choice in the middle of something that's been so hurtful. But she knew what the Word of God had to say. She knew how God had forgiven her, all of us, when we didn't deserve it. And so she said, I chose to forgive. That doesn't mean her warm, fuzzy feelings were all wrapped around that choice. It means she settled in and said, I'm going to do the right thing here. I'm going to do what God has spoken to me to do, not what he deserves, not looking at what's been done to me. I'm going to make the right choice for me. So she chose to forgive. And then they talked about the hard work they put in, because to restore something that's been broken takes some work, doesn't it? And it doesn't just happen because you've decided you want to hang in there for a while. You've got to do some work to put things back together, and then you've got to have some plan, a plan for where you're going as a couple, where she said at the end, don't forsake those date nights, work your plan, keep it going. Everything in the world wants to pull us apart from each other, wants to challenge the vows and the commitment that we've made, but God comes into the middle of that. And he takes our mess and he gives us a message if we'll give it to him. He gives us a start over. You know, that's such a unique thing to walking with Christ to me. And the start over, you know, isn't without its dents and its scars and its bumps. But along the way, sometimes what you have is more real because of all of that. You've worked through life. You've worked through the junk. You've worked through the things that have challenged your relationship. Don't walk away from something that was awesome enough for you to make a lifelong commitment to it just because the going got tough or just because one of you was unfaithful. It is redeemable, but you both have to be willing to redeem it. That is always God's way. It's always his desire to see us whole, to see us healed.